When I wrote the main title to Kenshi, I didn't have a lot to work with. So I get a lot of my inspiration from Chris, the main developer, and from concept art of biomes that were still in development. So a valid question you might ask is, well, how could you write a main title to something you haven't fully experienced yet? And the only reason we actually were able to do that is because Chris and I discussed various themes that we wanted to run throughout all gameplay experiences, no matter what the player is doing. And really it just boils down to the reality of Kenshi's world. It's harsh and unforgiving, but there's beauty in its indifference, and at least for you and your band of survivors, there can sometimes be a little bit of hope. I knew immediately from the beginning of working on Kenshi that guitars would play a large role in the score and the overall sound of the entire world, no matter what the biome. This is true for the main title as well. So I used everything at my disposal, which is nylon string, a nice warm acoustic guitar sound, a crisp metallic steel string, sometimes with a slide, and of course electric guitar, which wasn't overly processed, but I did like to use a decent amount of reverb and delay. This was the foundation for a lot of the pieces, and specifically the main title. The finished main title for Kenshi was actually a combination of two different ideas that I wrote a month or so apart from each other. The first of which is an idea that I came up with while staring at concept art, drinking coffee one morning, and I wanted to create the feeling of standing out in the middle of somewhere and having everything change around you. So we're like this melodic note, the E flat, just sitting there, and the harmony changes are around us. So we have C minor first. Staying on E flat, we move to an A flat minor in first inversion, back to C minor, and then an A7 flat 5 kind of sound before our melody finally moves to a C sharp, the third. The second idea was actually something I wrote at the very beginning as a demo for Chris to see if we could possibly work together on Kenshi. And it was really just a simple repeated figure on the guitar, and the bass line descends. The harmony slightly changes, but mainly it's just the bass movement is what I was focusing on when I first created it, and then I added harmony to it a little bit later, and the melody didn't come until a little bit later too. After I had the idea I just spoke about, I was sitting down with the rest of the piece, and then the melody, the na da 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 kind of melody came a little bit later. As much as I would like to brag that I got the main title right on the first try, that would be a lie. It went through a few different revisions, not a lot, but a few, and the first of which was this overly Western, adventurous vibe. It started out okay and correct with that sparseness of the ambient sound that ends up in the main title piece, but this was just a bit too Westerny and adventurous, as you'll hear in this example. My second attempt expanded on the sparseness from the first demo, which was great. We wanted that ambient vibe. However, we moved away from the Western one and we wanted something a little bit more beautiful. However, in this next demo, I created something that sounded more pretty than beautiful. It's a thin line, but very important, and you can hear it in this example. Technically, the main title is not finished yet, as the game is still in development, and we need to go to the studio to record a few more live musicians. Specifically, taiko drums, woodwinds like shakuhachi, shamisen, things like that. However, we've already had the pleasure of recording a phenomenal cellist named Janess, and a great koto player and musician named Jun Kuramoto. They did a great job on the score, specifically they are featured in the Savannah biome, and for the main title. As far as recording techniques, we mainly had Jun, the koto player, play solo. However, during certain moments in the main title, we doubled her line and then panned it hard left and right so it sounded a little bit bigger. And for Janess, the cellist, we mainly had her play solo for the melodic line so we could hear the intricacies of that specific line. However, for certain moments, we doubled, tripled, and added harmonies to her original part to create a big, nice, swelling chord. When you add a lot of reverb and delay to it, it sounded like this in the piece. Last but not least, we have the custom synth sounds that I created using Isotope's Iris. So I had many different organic samples that I collected of various instruments, recombined them so I made whole new instruments. These were very important to the piece, especially at creating the tone at the beginning with the guitar and wind sound effects. They faded a little bit more as traditional instruments made their way in, but they come back in so it kind of has this full circle sound. While Kenshi normally has a pretty involved music system, for the main title it's very basic. We just set up a loop and let it play over and over again. Because of its length, around 5 minutes long, and the fact that a majority of the piece is actually quite ambient, it works pretty well. And we have various wind sound effects and everything that work their way into the piece, so we don't really have to worry about it becoming overly repetitive. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing, sharing, or even supporting this video series on Patreon. Thanks and take care.